Here we are, friends. Here we are with the final chapters of Reiki and Rock. Grab yourself a cuppa and settle in. 2 short chapters. This is chapter 19, Forgiveness. Days passed, and Jade and Jenny took turns visiting Rob. Between them, he was almost never alone, as Jade spoke words of love and Jenny words of encouragement to the battered singer. He could hear every word and feel every touch, and he longed to be free of these shackles. He remembered God's words and turned to him in prayer, asking for a miracle to heal his body and return him to the one he loved so dearly. In these moments alone with Jade, he had felt a love so stirring that often a small tear would descend from his eye onto the pillow. Jade, who began to be weary of the hospital, prayed every day in the small chapel and outside under the willow tree that was in the hospital courtyard. She realized she didn't have to be in church for God to hear her prayers, and even though her body felt exhausted from emotion, her heart was lifted up and redeemed. Her thoughts turned to Alejandro, and she wondered if he was okay. Jenny joined her one afternoon under the willow tree, and Jade told her about the last moment she had spent with Alejandro on the beach. "Jenny, I don't know if he'll ever forgive me, or if I'll even see him or speak with him again. He was distraught, and he took off, and then I left. But now I feel I must ask for his forgiveness for what I've done to him. My heart is so heavy about it. What do I do?" she asked Jenny, who was listening intently without interrupting. Jenny knew what these moments felt like, for she had done her share of dumping someone in the past, and she knew it left a pang of guilt that needed work to heal. The most significant thing was for someone to forgive themselves first, and then ask for forgiveness from the other person involved. "There's an ancient Hawaiian forgiveness technique I want to teach you, Jade," Jenny said, holding Jade's hand. "It's called Ho'oponopono, and it's simple to do, but very powerful in its results. Do you want to try it with Alejandro?" "Sure. At this point, I'll try anything," Jade said, listening intently. "You just say, 'I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you,'" Jenny said. "Here, I'll write them down for you," she said, pulling a notebook from her bag. "After each one, you inject any heartfelt words. So first let's practice it for yourself," Jenny said, handing Jade the paper. Jade took the paper, and thinking deep into her heart, she said, "I'm sorry, Jade, for all I've done to betray my heart in the past. I forgive myself for not honoring my heart and not listening to its cry for love." As she said each part of the prayer, she felt herself even lighter. When she finished, she took a deep breath as it felt like a heavy weight was lifting off her. "This is so beautiful, Jenny. I feel much better," she said, smoothing back her deep red hair that had become somewhat disheveled over the past few days. "Look at me," she said. "I'm a wreck on the outside, but I feel so good on the inside. Do you mind if I go clean up a little bit?" "Yes, love, you should go for a while and get out. I've booked us into a hotel down the street, so take some time to freshen up and then come back. I'll stay with Rob," Jenny said, feeling that Jade had improved since she had arrived a few days before. She felt a deep healing energy coming from Jade, and she made note that the miracles had already started to occur, knowing deep down that everything was fine now and time just needed to pass. Not much longer now, she thought. Jade left the hospital in Jenny's rental car and just made it to the hotel. She went up to the room and took a long, hot shower, singing a song she had composed for Rob. When he wakes up, she thought, this will be my song to him. I will sing it whenever I go and wherever I go, and he will know how much my love for him is. She ordered room service, and while she was waiting for a strong coffee, she pulled out the paper with the Ho'oponopono prayer that Jenny had written for her. She grabbed her phone and pulled up Alejandro's name. "I don't know if he'll answer my call, and I don't think I could even hear his voice right now," she thought. "It's just too painful." So she decided to text him with a cry for his forgiveness. Alejandro, my love, I know I've hurt you terribly, and for that I am truly sorry. I hope one day you can find it in your heart to please forgive me. I acted out of selfishness. I didn't think about your feelings. Thank you, love, for all you have done and been in my life. I want so much to remain your friend, but I understand if you cannot see me in that way. She was crying now as she continued to type. I love you, Alejandro, as a dear and cherished friend, and I will never forget our times together. Please let me know you are okay. Jade. Her food arrived, and she poured hot coffee and looked every few moments at her phone, hoping that he would respond. Even if he didn't, she felt better pouring out her love and forgiveness to him, and she hoped he could feel her sincerity. Just then her cell rang, and she saw Jenny's name. Her heart leaped into her throat, expecting the worst, and she tried to calm herself before answering. Jade, it's me. He's waking up, Jade. Please come. Praise God, he's waking up. I'm on my way, Jade said. Dropping her phone into her bag, she pulled on jeans, a leather halter top, and pulled her hair up into a loose bun. She thought she had never looked more disheveled and tired, but inside she was glowing and alive. She drove the few miles to the hospital and then stopped for a moment before getting out of the car. What if he doesn't recognize me, she thought. What if he doesn't want to see me after what happened with Sky? Then as love for him filled her heart, she realized that none of this mattered. She was here to pour her love out and into him, and that is what she would do. In her excitement, she ran to his room. When she got outside the door, she stopped for a moment to take a deep breath. She asked God to please give her the strength to face him and to say what was on her heart. Jenny was already inside, and she didn't know what to expect as she swung open the door. What she saw took her breath away. Rob the man, her man, was sitting up slightly in bed. Some of the horrible tubes and machines had been removed, and Jenny was by his side holding his hand. And then he saw her. His eyes were a little blurry, but he knew this woman anywhere. He smiled the biggest smile he could manage, with the oxygen tube down his throat, and his eyes beamed. He felt like his heart might explode with an overwhelming feeling of love for this woman. Jade wanted to move quickly to his side, but it seemed like everything was happening in slow motion. Jenny moved aside and hugged her friend. He's going to pull out of this. The doctor said he's doing great. It will be a few weeks before he can leave, but he's going to be fine, Jenny said, crying tears of joy. Jade turned from Jenny to look at Rob. Their eyes met, and she couldn't help the deep sobs that came up from her heart and out of her body. She reached out her hand and she touched him, and she felt the now familiar spark between them. Hello, stranger. I've missed you. Got so much to say, love, she said, sitting down next to him as Jenny slipped from the room. I love you, Rob Strom, and I have since we first met, maybe even long before that. And I can't stand another minute not knowing if you feel the same, and I would die if we never had the chance to speak again. His heart leapt at her words, and he thought that even though he lay battered and bruised in this hospital bed, this might just be one of the happiest days of his life. He squeezed her hand and then whispered the words she longed to hear. I love you, Jade Monroe, with all my heart. There, he had said it, and he knew that nothing could come between them again. Anything could be healed by the love he felt for her, and he vowed to spend every moment of his life showing her just that. She didn't know whether to hold his hand or jump on top of him. She was so elated. She knew it would be a while before they could consummate their love, but that made the waiting even more precious. Just knowing that he was here with her and he loved her was enough for now. Soon the nurses asked her to leave again, and she met with Jenny and Murray in the waiting area. They all rejoiced and hugged, and she thought she would never feel so happy again in all her life. God had returned her love to her, and she felt so grateful in this moment. There's something I need to do, she told Jenny. I'll be right back, she said as she headed for the first floor. As she entered into the chapel, she felt a deep peace around her again, and she knelt before the small cross to share her gratitude and thanks to God in prayer. As she rose up, the chaplain joined her, and she shared the good news with him. I'm so thankful, chaplain. If it wasn't for your words, I might not be here now feeling so lifted up and free. Thank you for introducing me to God and Jesus. My heart is slowly healing, and I know that I'll be okay now," she said as he took her hands. God always has a plan for each one of us, Jade. And for you, that plan is being revealed to you now. May you honor and show your love for him in all that you do," he said softly. Jade thanked him and left the chapel to go out under the willow tree. With a fresh coffee in hand, she sat and pulled out the Ho'oponopono prayer again. She didn't know why this simple prayer felt so good, but saying it just made her feel better. Just then her cell notified her of a text message. She picked up her phone and saw Alejandro's name. Her fingers trembled, afraid to open the text in case he might still be furious with her. She didn't know what he would do. As she swiped to read it, a lump caught in her throat as she thought of the deep love she still felt for this man. It wasn't the love of a lifetime, but the love of one soul to another, of two people who had shared so much together, but never really were able to share that ultimate love with each other. They simply were not meant to be in this lifetime. Her tears flowed as she read, "I forgive you, Jade, and I will always love you, my pet. I will be okay. I'm taking time to figure out what I want in my life now. I know that we might never speak again, and I'm slowly working through this. Please have patience with me. A." Chapter 20, Beginnings. Several weeks passed, and each day Rob became stronger until the day he was well enough to leave the hospital. Each day together in the hospital, they spoke of so many plans for what they would do together. Rob knew he needed to stop drinking, but he also knew he couldn't do it on his own. He spoke with Jenny, and they worked out a healing schedule for him to continue seeing her, start working with his AA mentor again, and start seeing an intuitive therapist that Jenny had recommended for him. He was well enough now to walk with a cane and move about the hospital with Jade by his side. She had already been planning what they would do on his release, which included lots of alone time together. He would come back with her to the estate, and they would take each day as it came, just basking in their love for each other. Jenny, strong as she was, had been shaken by this string of events. She realized the preciousness of life and that she had been working way too hard. She had spent hours on the phone with Logan, who had come to see her several times on the weekends, foregoing his trips to the wolf sanctuary in favor of lingering in her arms and holding her in bed after their passionate lovemaking. Jenny had decided to slow down on her client load and spend more time with Logan. "I don't know where this will lead," she had said to Jade one day, "but I want to try and be present for him. He's even talking about leaving the software company to go to work at the wolf sanctuary, and we're planning a trip to his grandmother's ranch. Oh, Jenny, I'm so happy for you." Jade had hugged her tightly. "I know this will be so good for you." On the day of Rob's release from the hospital, Jenny and Jade helped wheel him out of the hospital entrance. Jade had spared no expense to ensure he had a comfortable trip home. To her home, which she hoped he would want to make his someday too. They had flown by jet, and then a limo had taken them to the singer's Malibu estate. When the limo pulled up to the entrance of the big house, Rob remembered fondly the day he had seen her naked on the balcony, and he smiled. Jade came round to open the limo door and help him out, and she saw his smile. "What are you smiling like that for? You're beaming," she said, looking at him with so much love in her eyes. And now the Rob she knew was slowly returning as he spoke next. As she helped him out of the car, he whispered in her ear, "I'm thinking of how I'm going to ravish you up there in that bedroom, of how you're never going to want to leave my arms," he said in his sexiest voice, holding on to her and then putting his hand around her waist now to steady himself. "I remember the last time we fell together like this," she said, feeling the heat in her lower body rise. "I will never let you go, and you better make love to me all night or else," she said playfully as the limo pulled away. Rob looked into her eyes, and they stood there for a moment, letting the passion form around them. She couldn't take it as she moved into him for a kiss so passionate that she felt dizzy when he released her. And then slowly they made their way inside. Thank you so much for listening to this audiobook. If you love it as much as I do, then please take time to sit with its messages, its meanings, and the healing work that is the intention of every story and every book that channels through me out to you all. We also use these books as healing workbooks over on my Patreon. And you can join me for more audiobooks either on TLC for the Soul podcast, on all major podcast providers, on my TLC for the Soul YouTube channel, and for daily shorts and other fun, uplifting, motivational messages on my almost daily shorts on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Take care.